The Orphan Boy and the Magic Stone. A chief of Ind named Inkata had a son named Ionkita, whose mother had died at his birth. The old chief was a hunter and used to take his son out with him when he went into the bush. He used to do most of his hunting in the long grass which grows over nearly all the Ind country, and used to kill plenty of bush buck in the dry season. In those days the people had no guns, so the chief had to shoot everything he got with his bow and arrows, which required a lot of skill. When his little son was old enough, he gave him a small bow and some small arrows, and taught him how to shoot. The little boy was very quick at learning, and by continually practicing at lizards and small birds, soon became expert in the use of his little bow, and could hit them almost every time he shot at them. When the boy was 10 years old his father died, and as he thus became the head of his father's house, and was in authority over all the slaves, they became very discontented, and made plans to kill him, so he ran away into the bush. Having nothing to eat, he lived for several days on the nuts which fell from the palm trees. He was too young to kill any large animals, and only had his small bow and arrows, with which he killed a few squirrels, bush rats, and small birds, and so managed to live. Now once at night, when he was sleeping in the hollow of a tree, he had a dream in which his father appeared, and told him where there was plenty of treasure buried in the earth, but, being a small boy, he was frightened, and did not go to the place. One day, some time after the dream, having walked far and being very thirsty, he went to a lake, and was just going to drink, when he heard a hissing sound, and heard a voice tell him not to drink. Not seeing anyone, he was afraid, and ran away without drinking. Early next morning, when he was out with his bow trying to shoot some small animal, he met an old woman with quite long hair. She was so ugly that he thought she must be a witch, so he tried to run, but she told him not to fear, as she wanted to help him and assist him to rule over his late father's house. She also told him that it was she who had called out to him at the lake not to drink, as there was a bad juju in the water which would have killed him. The old woman then took Ion to a stream some little distance from the lake, and bending down, took out a small shining stone from the water, which she gave to him, at the same time telling him to go to the place which his father had advised him to visit in his dream. She then said, "When you get there you must dig, and you will find plenty of money. You must then go and buy 2 strong slaves, and when you have got them, you must take them into the forest, away from the town, and get them to build you a house with several rooms in it. You must then place the stone in one of the rooms, and whenever you want anything, all you have to do is to go into the room and tell the stone what you want, and your wishes will be at once gratified." Ion did as the old woman told him, and after much difficulty and danger bought the 2 slaves, and built a house in the forest, taking great care of the precious stone, which he placed in an inside room. Then for some time, whenever he wanted anything, he used to go into the room and ask for a sufficient number of rods to buy what he wanted, and they were always brought at once. This went on for many years, and Ion grew up to be a man, and became very rich, and bought many slaves, having made friends with the Aro men, who in those days used to do a big traffic in slaves. After 10 years had passed, Ion had quite a large town and many slaves. But one night the old woman appeared to him in a dream and told him that she thought that he was sufficiently wealthy, and that it was time for him to return the magic stone to the small stream from whence it came. But Ion, although he was rich, wanted to rule his father's house and be a head chief for all the Ind country, so he sent for all the juju men in the country and 2 witch men, and marched with all his slaves to his father's town. Before he started he held a big palaver, and told them to point out any slave who had a bad heart, and who might kill him when he came to rule the country. Then the juju men consulted together, and pointed out 50 of the slaves who, they said, were witches, and would try to kill Ion. He at once had them made prisoners, and tried them by the ordeal of Essia bean, strong poison, to see whether they were witches or not. As none of them could vomit the beans they all died, and were declared to be witches. He then had them buried at once. When the remainder of his slaves saw what had happened, they all came to him and begged his pardon, and promised to serve him faithfully. Although the 50 men were buried they could not rest, and troubled Ion very much, and after a time he became very sick himself, so he sent again for the juju men, who told him that it was the witch men who, although they were dead and buried, had power to come out at night and used to suck Ayong's blood, which was the cause of his sickness. They then said, "We are only 3 juju men, you must get 7 more of us," making the magic number of 10. When they came, they dug up the bodies of the 50 witches, and found they were quite fresh. Then Ayong had big fires made, and burned them one after the other, and gave the juju men a big present. He soon after became quite well again, and took possession of his father's property, and ruled over all the country. Ever since then, whenever anyone is accused of being a witch, they are tried by the ordeal of the poisonous Esir bean, and if they can vomit they do not die, and are declared innocent, but if they cannot do so, they die in great pain.